All right, guys, how's it going? We are back for some more spooky games. You see, I even updated my layout with my Cthulhu theme. Felt it was appropriate. Lovecraft would approve, I'm sure. But yeah, we're gonna be playing some of the game Dagon tonight. I don't really know a lot about this game. I've just heard that it has Cthulhu type stuff in it, and it's kind of almost like a walking simulator, I think. Maybe there's some puzzles. I don't really remember. I just remember hearing about it on Steam a while back, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like a fun game I might like to play sometime. And guess what? It was in the Ukraine bundle that I got recently. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I try it? Got stuff on my screen here. Sorry. But yeah, I was like, why don't I give it a try? And then I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be playing this for the first time, why don't I stream it? Why not? Could be fun. So yeah, that's what we are doing here tonight. I don't really know how long this game is. I probably should have looked that up, but I mean, we'll just play for a while and see where it takes us, I guess. So let's get right into it. Probably should have tested the game beforehand to make sure it actually ran, but we're lucky. I've got the game up. Why is it not showing up? Any full screen application? No. Hey, there we go. All right. DLC, little class bottle DLC. I'm not sure which DLCs I have. I think I have both of them, but again, didn't check. Just got this game in a bundle. I didn't actually go out and buy it myself. It is sounding a little loud on my end. I'm gonna turn that down just a little ways. That way you guys can still hear me okay, hopefully, and I can still hear what the heck's going on and hopefully not shit myself if something scary happens. I don't know if there's scary stuff in this game. I mean, Cthulhu, but Cthulhu doesn't necessarily mean scary, so. English. Okay. I'll make that just a little bigger for you watching at home. I hate watching, like, man, the other day I was, well, it wasn't the other day, but it was, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago when the Book of Boba Fett was out, right? The new Star Wars show. But anyway, I was watching it on my phone, and like the credits in that show are so freaking small that I couldn't read them on my phone. Like, yeah, go figure. I was trying to check the credits for something in it. I couldn't read it because they were just way too tiny. So hopefully, if any of you at home are watching this on your phone, you'll still be able to read the subtitles. That's my hope, and me too. Okay. Normally I turn motion blur off in games, but let's just try it for now, and if it becomes a problem later, we can trivia. So these must be like the collectibles, I would assume. Yeah, let's just get into it. Dagon is a faithful, interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work, focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here. Good. And movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot. So yeah, it does sound like it's a basic walking simulator. But yeah, let's get into it.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Oh, do I click next? During this game, you will encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue. Others reveal interesting facts about the original short story. Okay, that's kind of cool. Some of the trivia is hidden. Oh, so keep your eyes out, chat. Don't let me miss anything. You can also access all the found facts later at the main menu. Yeah. So. Okay, so if I focus my eyes with right click, I look for the little chicken foot elder sign. Ooh. Ooh. Oh. Okay, so that's what it does when I focus. Well, let's...
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
No, don't do it. Choose life, man. Don't do drugs, kids.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Is it Cthulhu? I bet it's Cthulhu. Nice wallpaper, by the way. That looks like if Dr. Seuss took his hand at drawing Cthulhu. Alright, yeah. Oh.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
Not the Germans. Frickin' Germans ruining everything. But from the look of it, I don't actually move. I pretty much just use the mouse to look around and point stuff out and then click on it. Oh, hey, look. First bit of trivia. There. May have missed some in that last room, but oh well. Dagon was written about a month after excuse me, the United States entered World War I. Lovecraft was interested in its course. He composed many poems in which he gave encouragement to soldiers and commented on the events unfolding in Europe. He tried doing this in the army, which he mentions in one of the letters to Reinhard Kleiner. Some time ago, impressed by my entire uselessness in the world, I resolved to attempt enlistment despite my almost invalid condition. I argued that if I chose a regiment soon to depart for France, my sheer nervous force, which is not inconsiderable, might sustain me till a bullet or piece of shrapnel could more conclusively and effectively dispose of me. Morbid. I get it, though. But even though he passed the physical exam, his mother prevented him from going to war. She has threatened to go to any lengths, legal or otherwise, if I do not reveal all the ills which unfit me for the army. I am Providence, the life and times of H.P. Lovecraft. Interesting. Don't you?
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
Yeah, that looks like Germany.
So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Nice. Okay, now I need to find something. The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established a dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors, masters of quick raids who developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. During World War I, the British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops before they embarked to China in 1900. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given, prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago, the Huns under their king Attila made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be feared by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will dare to look cross-eyed at a German. The refusal to take prisoners was a clear breach of the laws and customs of war adopted during the First Hague Convention of 1899. Interesting. Now, let me know if you guys want me to keep reading these. I mean, I don't have to read them all out loud. Like, if some of you have seen this game before, feel free to comment and I'll just, read them quickly to myself rather than reading them. But if you, like me, are also new and you want me to read them out, let me know. I'm open to whatever you guys want to hear. Oh, getting in the boat.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Escaping in the middle of the ocean. I'm sure this is going to end well, folks. Anything else around here? Nope. Okay. Let's go.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings.
Yeah. How frickin' kidding. Oof. Brave fellow, I guess.
Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator.
That'd be a ways to travel, right? Because I don't remember if he said where he set off from, but assuming he was picked up by German boats, it probably would be somewhere in like the North Atlantic, I would think. So, yeah.
Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Got that right. Well, there's the moon, I'm assuming.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land. But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept.
Oh, spooky.
Its details I shall never know. For my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Okay. Hey there, Mr. Squid. How's it going?
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished. For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime, Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Weird.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
The mystery of volcanic islands. Volcanic eruptions sometimes result in the creation of islands. Most of them are transient and erode after some time, but some prove permanent. The floating pumice, porous rock created when superheated pressurized rock is ejected from a volcano, can move across long distances and transport barnacles and microalgae that cling to it. In 2001, rafts of pumice created during the eruption of a volcano near Tonga, Polynesia, eventually reached Australia. Pretty cool. Rocks with holes in it, just kind of floating along. Cool stuff. Now, anyway, back to the existential horror.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue. On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
Ugh.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Well, hello there.
That night I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
Horrors of the Ocean. Creator of the Cthulhu mythos and the fictional underwater city of was convinced that life could not exist at the bottom of the ocean because the water pressure would make it uninhabitable. Today, we know that the darkest depths of the ocean are home to many peculiar organisms. The deepest dwelling fish we have discovered so far, the Mariana snailfish, can live about 8,000 meters, or 2,600 feet, below the ocean surface, in never-ending darkness and at hellishly crushing pressures, hundreds of times stronger than those found at sea level. Upon glancing at the modern photos of deep-sea creatures such as the anglerfish, the fangtooth, or the viperfish, and their truly Lovecraftian characteristics, it's hard not to find some irony in this. Yeah.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
The Loner. Contrary to popular opinion, Lovecraft was not an ever-frowning, eccentric, grumpy loner. He considered himself to be a person who appreciated humor. Moreover, he would often meet with friends in his apartment or at various cafes in Brooklyn and Manhattan. At times, his social life was so intensive his work would suffer for months. There was a point when he finally decided he needed to put an end to daily meetings and loitering in New York cafeterias, and resorted to hiding at home and reading with the main room light turned off, pretending he wasn't there whenever a friend knocked at his door. Relatable. He also had another method of turning his guests, which involved greeting them in a bathrobe, with an unmade bed visible in the background and piles of papers scattered across the floor. I should try that sometime.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual. Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
The marker.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself.
Yeah. Perfectly square piece of stone, like you see every day.
But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature.
See?
A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express. For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures.
Fish people?
Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely. The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
Interesting.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Storytelling methods. Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as telling the story through carvings at the Mountains of Madness and Nameless City, journals and character notes, The Shadow Out of Time, The Haunter of the Dark, Islands Emerging from the Ocean, Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies. Migo in Whisper in Darkness. That's interesting. Have any of you guys read any H.P. Lovecraft? I can't say that I have. I'm only familiar with it through some video games and board games here and there. Can't say that I'm a literary follower of his. Time for some Bravery Lemonade. Also considered to be the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's skip the details in order not to spoil the ending. Ooh.
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré.
sounds like I am not familiar with that word. I'm curious what it means. What is a doorway? Or a gold bar. That's not it. I can't find it with a quick Google search. And you guys know what it is? Array of bas reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré.
I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men. Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto.
Fish people? Oh, kind of like mermaids. Or men or women. Whatever. I don't know the politically correct term. But
Or paying homage at some monolithic shrine, which appeared to be under the waves as well.
just like this one. Although it's not under the water at this particular time.
Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
Now that's creepy.
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe.
Yeah, nothing to worry about. Hey, Ghostly Head, how's it going, man? What are you up to? Besides watching me, of course.
Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Vast, Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith.
It's getting real, guys. I'm scared.
About which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then.
I don't blame you, dude.
Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal, and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. When I came out of the
Hashtag too
shadows,
spooky.
I was in a San Francisco hospital. Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
The atheist. Lovecraft considered himself an atheist and absolute materialist, which he attributed partly to his early childhood interest in astronomy and science in general. In his own words, "I am indeed an absolute materialist so far as actual belief goes, with not a shred of credence in any form of supernaturalism, religion, spiritualism, transcendentalism, metempsychosis, or immortality." But must be tongue twister day. "All I say is that I think it is damned unlikely that anything like a central cosmic will, a spirit world, or an eternal survival of personality exists. They are the most preposterous and unjustified of all the guesses which can be made about the universe, and I am not enough of a hair-splitter to pretend that I don't regard them as arrogant and negligible moonshine. In theory, I am an agnostic, but pending the appearance of radical evidence, I must be classified, practically and provisionally, as an atheist." Sources. Interesting. Oh, more goodies. In Defense of Dagon. In 1921, Lovecraft released a series of 3 essays: The Defense Reopens, The Defense Remains Open, and Final Words, later published as a collection entitled In Defense of Dagon, in which he rebukes a series of criticisms directed at his works. Some notable quotes: "I paint what I dream, and will let the public settle the rest among themselves. Mr. Mundy asked the raison d'etre of Dagon. I will give it. Purely and simply to reproduce a mood. Its object is the simplest in all art, portrayal. The physical horrors of war, no matter how extreme and unprecedented, hardly have a bearing on the entirely different realm of supernatural terror. Ghosts are still ghosts. The mind can get more thrills from unreality than from reality." In the essays, Lovecraft touches upon the topics of atheism, materialism, quest for truth, and love for science. Interesting. Tired of people shitting on his stuff, I guess. Oh, goodies. The journalist. Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he always also took criticism to heart. I didn't know H stood for Howard. Guess we all learned something today. He was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticism to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again, for the first time since his teenage years. Dagon, published in 1919, is one of the short stories written during that period. In this example excerpt from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is or ever can be above warfare until the basic impulses of the human animal shall have miraculously changed. I mean, that That makes a lot of sense. I mean, even for his time, which was before World War One. Interesting. But anyway, after those asides, back to our spooky Cthulhu story. Ghost story.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Huh. Philistine god. I didn't know that. It's interesting. Dagon? Dagon, or Dagon, was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. Interesting. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose Dagon as the patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as a judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem and an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretations of his name. In Hebrew, the word dag means fish. Okay. In H.P. Lovecraft's works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that resides in the ocean. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Yeah, if any of you guys watched my one of my earlier playthroughs on this channel, we played through a Call of Cthulhu game and ran into the Esoteric Order of Dagon. They were kind of like the main bad guys. Definitely check that Let's Play out. That was a fun one. It went a little too long, had some rough parts, but it was fun. Just check it out if you haven't. Yeah, self-promotion. Alright. What else is there to look at here? Oh, cabinet.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
Yeah, normal people, am I right? Bunch of normies. August Derleth and the Cthulhu Mythos. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist. Yeah. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's works after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine. Derleth was a devout Catholic, took the Cthulhu Mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. Like he said he was an atheist, so I guess he didn't believe in all that stuff. As a result, H.P. Lovecraft's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. It's also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu Mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Interesting. Another book. The Marketer. Lovecraft's attempts to find a job in 1925 were influenced by advice he received from friends. Among others, he started freelancing for a marketing magazine where he would often write announcements and commercials. Pardon. Feel free to judge his copywriting skills for yourself. From an ad for Curtis Woodwork. Curtis woodwork embraces the usual structural units and the cleverest contrivances of built-in or permanent furniture, such as bookcases, dressers, buffets, and cupboards. Each model is conceived and created with the purest art, ripest scholarship, and mellowest craftsmanship with which energetic enterprise can command, and made to conform rigidly to the architecture of each particular type of home. The cost, considering the quality, is amazingly low, and a trademark on the individual pieces prevents any substitution by careless contractors. Not a bad ad. I'd check it out. Okay, nothing else here. We going to another shelf or something? Where are we going? Ah, the clock. Whoa. That was weird. Whoa. Interesting. What time is it? Looks like it's about 9 minutes after 10. I guess. I can't really tell. Hey there. How's it going? Okay, not much to see there, huh? Is that really all there is here? No. Apparently there was a symbol there, I just couldn't see it. The scientist. These days, the word scientist is a widely accepted term, but at the time Dagon was published, it was subject to a wide debate. After the author used it in his story, critics pointed out that man of science was a more appropriate term to employ. He admitted in the Defense of Dagon that if Dagon were to be reprinted, he would indeed use the phrase they suggested. Scientist was coined as an analog to artist, to be used when referring to those studying different branches of science. Yet, in the 19th and early 20th centuries, scientific researchers in Great Britain and the United States were of the opinion that man of science, resembling the term man of letters, was the only proper choice. Among other things, it was gender specific, indicating that science was an endeavor to be pursued only by one sex. The term scientist became more accepted only after World War II, and man of science started fading into obscurity as an old-fashioned synonym. Yeah, I don't think I've heard anyone call themselves a man of science. Except, like, maybe ironically. Alright, let's head for the door. I do kind of like this format where just point and click. Simple.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine.
Morphine. Not good. That's what they gave the guy in Saving Private Ryan right before he died.
But the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave.
Yep.
So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Lovecraft on tobacco and alcohol. Lovecraft hated tobacco. Even though he used to smoke when he was 12 in order to look and feel like an adult, in his correspondence with friend Reinhard Kleiner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter to Zelia Brown from 1928. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coarsens the delicate nature, equipoise of the evolved human intellect and imagination. Drinking excited my personal repugnance, hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I am rather in favor of prohibition. The prohibition of any one antisocial force, as well as of any other. So, not a fan.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm. A mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man-of-war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Spooky.
The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it. It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!
Taps in the chat. Okay. Now I'll have to look. I think I have either one or both of these. Let me go back to the main menu and we'll see what happens. There might be more to the story. But yeah, that didn't take very long. That was only barely an hour. See what happens if I click on one of these. Ooh. Okay, well that opened a thing with audiobooks, ebook, wallpapers. Okay. What does this one do? That opens Steam. Yeah, that one apparently it says is coming soon on Steam. Okay, well, I guess that is all of Dagon. What did you guys think? Yeah, probably most of you didn't even catch all of it, so definitely go back and check it out. I mean, like I said, it was only about an hour, so I'll definitely have to post this one over to YouTube when I get a chance, but yeah, kind of fun. Definitely would play again. Well, I mean, I'd play, other stuff if they made it. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll switch over to something else. I mean, it's still pretty early in the night. But yeah, I guess this will be the end of this part for now. And yeah, maybe we'll be on in a little bit with something else for the rest of the night, or maybe this will just be it. I'll have to go see what my buddies want to do. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching, and I guess we will see you all next time. Have fun. Bye.